it is a lot of money.
Piece of consumer advice right
Yeah,
there.
overpaid a little bit.
Where we made our mistakes, you guys won't make the same mistakes.
Exactly. No one's gonna buy this. We're above that budget now. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Track Use. In today's episode, we're going to be diving deep into the cost breakdown of the BRZ. We're going to talk about the parts we have on the car, how much it costs, and basically every little detail we have to basically put out there, right? So that maybe in the future you can build something similar to this, or you can not make the mistakes that we did earlier, right? But first things first, elephant in the room, and we're going to talk more about the reason why we have 3 wheels and tires in the back of my daily right now. If you've been following the channel, you're going to realize that these are actually the wheels from the BRZ. We are missing one of them, but like I said, we're going to talk more about that later in the video. So let's go. So we're going to start with the car itself. It's a 2018 Subaru BRZ. When I bought it, it had 35,000 kilometers on it. It was fairly clean, right?
It was very clean, actually.
Yeah. So like the underside did have some rust, but like not more than what you expect on a Canadian car.
Yeah,
right?
nothing structural, nothing close to what we're used to dealing with. So
Yeah.
to have a nice clean chassis like that, it was definitely worth every penny.
Yeah. So for the car, I paid 27,000, and that's Canadian. Every number that we're gonna put out today is gonna be in Canadian dollar, but I'll put down the conversion into US. So maybe it's gonna make more sense for those guys who are watching in the States. So yeah, for the car itself, I paid 27,000 Canadian. I think that's a pretty good value when you consider the mileage of the car and how clean it was. I still think cars are like overpriced a little bit these days.
Yeah.
So like in my mind, I still overpaid a little bit. But
In my opinion, I think it was actually worth it because I've seen tons of these cars before, and they're usually either clapped out, slammed, or they're generally when they came out, they were kind of a budget consumer car.
yeah,
But nowadays, people are putting nicer and nicer parts in them. So at least you didn't get one that was heavily modified
yeah,
or
no,
anything like that, because that usually leads to a lot more trouble than you would ever expect.
definitely, yeah,
So starting out with a nice clean chassis was definitely worth
yeah.
the
And it was
extra.
actually listed at 30K.
Oh, okay.
And like
Nice.
I kind of got like 10% discount
Nice.
on it, and like I I was frank with them, right? I was like, no one's gonna buy this for 30K,
Right. Yeah.
right? We're
Makes
talking
sense.
about a 5-year-old BRZ.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't care how clean it is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There's a new gen that's come out last year.
Yeah.
Like no one's gonna pay that much
Right.
for this car, right? And
So
then
that's piece of consumer advice right
yeah,
there. That's how you
yeah,
deal.
exactly. Like I mean, I walked around the car, I don't know, maybe for like 15, 20 minutes
Yeah.
just to find something wrong with it
Yeah.
so that I can get like 1,000 off there, 1,000 off there.
Right.
And then it worked out,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
sure.
the car actually had mismatching tires front and rear,
Nice.
and even the dealer didn't notice that,
Aha, nice.
right?
There
And
you
I was
go.
like, the tires are not matching,
Right.
right? So like you either give me an explanation
Yeah.
or I'm getting a discount for
Yeah,
that,
right.
right?
So the attention to detail, guys, that's
yeah,
exactly what we're trying to emphasize here. When you pay attention to those small things, it pays off huge time down the road when you're actually building something. So huge, one of the main points we're going to say about that topic, if you are planning on building a track car that is dedicated for it, start with a clean chassis, as clean as possible. Saves you a lot of headache down the road. And we can tell you that from experience. So definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah, right. So that's the car itself. After that, we have the coilovers. I put everything in a descending order.
Right.
So we're gonna start with the most expensive parts, and then we're gonna work our way down to more cheaper or like inexpensive parts. Coilovers, KWV3s. I paid $3,500 for that. It is a lot of money,
Yep.
right? For a set of coilovers, I think it's the most expensive coilovers that you can get for a BRZ at least.
Right.
Except you go with Club Sports,
Right.
but also from KW. But I had KWs in my old BRZ and I had zero problems with it, right? And I loved how dailyable it was,
Right.
and how good actually it performed on track. Like it soaks up the bumps like it's nothing, right?
Right. Yeah.
Nothing can actually upset the car at a track, and
Mhm.
especially at a track like DDT, hitting the curbs are the fastest way around, right?
Right.
So you need suspension that's not too stiff, also not too soft that it just like squats and basically slows you down, right? And I think it like that says a lot about the settings we have,
Yeah,
right? The
true.
rebound and compression.
Right.
So if you guys watched the shakedown video that we put out a couple of weeks ago, if you haven't, go watch that now. It's actually a really fun video.
Link here.
Yeah, I'll put a link somewhere around here. Uh, we actually thought that the car was skipping a little bit,
Right.
right? And we immediately started thinking about coming up with a softer setting, a little bit more forgiving rebound setting. But then we realized that we didn't actually play around with the tire pressures as we should have,
Yeah.
right? And as soon as we did that, it was perfect,
Yeah.
right? Especially at DDT,
Mhm.
the car was like nothing was upsetting the car. You hit a curb, and it just bumps you in the direction that you want to go, right? So I think uh, we got our money's worth
Yeah,
when it comes to that.
for sure.
But yeah, and I also want to talk about the corner balancing of the car. Now that we're talking about the suspension, uh, the car weighs 2,900 pounds with me in it and with a full tank of gas. And I think the curb weight for a BRZ is 2,800 pounds,
Yeah.
something around that. But I don't think the manufacturers actually include a driver in that number.
No, they don't.
They
No.
don't, right? So when you consider that I'm almost 200 pounds
Mhm.
and we're only 100 pound above
Above it.
the curb weight,
Yeah, that's actually really good.
yeah, that's actually like in terms of weight reduction.
Yeah.
And we still have like most of the interior,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
we have a roll bar too,
Yeah.
which actually weighs a lot.
hmm
So yeah,
So the coilovers definitely played a huge part in that weight savings. I think
definitely.
between the old suspension parts, they're all mostly cast steel,
Yeah.
iron parts and stuff like that. So,
Oh, and KWs don't rust.
and well, that's
Yeah.
another big thing too. So when you're purchasing high quality parts
Yeah.
like that, you can expect them for the most part to last a little bit longer. Not on top of, I mean, as well as perform better, but we're also looking for longevity, which is a huge thing, I think, especially in today's economy. So definitely, again, worth spending the little extra, in my opinion, just to make sure you have that clean, nice product.
Yeah. All right. So the next thing on the list.
So I think the next thing we did was the Titan Motorsports roll bar.
Yeah.
It's a half cage roll bar that kind of uses the rear structure of the car. It cost around $2,500. This is one of those products I definitely recommend getting a high quality unit.
Yeah.
It's one of those safety aspects to the car that in the event of any accidents or anything like that, at least you have that peace of mind sitting behind you, especially when it comes to having your harnesses on done correctly in case of a rollover or anything like that. Pretty much safety is like the number one thing we try to concentrate on. It's very easy to spend thousands of dollars on high quality parts, but if you're not securing yourself, what's the point really at the
Yeah.
end of the day, right? So, yep, like I said, $2,500, very clean unit. Uh, Definitely worth every single penny. Like I said, safety is
Yeah.
definitely top priority.
And also when you think about the price point, like I'm gonna ask you because I know you have a lot of experience when it comes to actually building a roll bar,
Right.
right? Designing it and getting the material for it. Do you think you could have gotten that material, just the material itself,
Mhm.
for 2,500 bucks, or would it
So
be?
when it comes to getting the actual material, the material itself is very cheap. You
Yeah.
can usually find that around our local suppliers, especially for a technician like myself. We have a little bit easier access to raw materials. But where you're actually spending the money when it comes to building a roll bar, it's the labor, especially when it comes to welding. Everything has to be nice and level. You want to make sure everything is cut once, measured 3 times. That's just kind of one of those things where I personally wouldn't take on a sort of job like that. Usually, why I recommend getting on a bolt-on
Yeah.
solution like Titan. It's very much more cost effective than having someone custom build you one. You're pretty much talking you're splitting oranges and apples at that point. Um,
Yeah.
of course, this is a bolt-in solution,
Yeah.
So this is for someone like a DIYer who can, do this at home at their garage or something like that. But if you're looking into real competition and you need to weld a bar in, then this might not be the
Yeah,
ideal
yeah,
solution for you. But for a track use car, like we're just more of a practice, kind of get our bearings on the track. So I think that's totally fine for what we needed it for.
yeah. And like you said, it's totally reversible too,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah,
Like you
that's a
don't,
big major
yeah,
point
like you
here.
don't make any holes in the chassis, you don't weld anything to the chassis, because some of the roll bars that are advertised as bolt-ons,
Right.
they're actually still like you drill the chassis and then you bolt it on there,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
But with this one, I specifically asked them before I purchased it, and they're like, no, it connects to the, like it bolts onto the existing holes.
Right.
So that was basically the last thing that I needed before I got that. All right. So the next item is the tires. We have, if we watch that episode where we like kind of revealed our setup, we have Yokohama 8009s. So I think they're 200 tread wear,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to the tires we have, they're not the stickiest tires out there,
Mhm.
right? Like, I mean, they're not going to be the fastest tires out there, especially in that price range, and especially in 200 treadwear league,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But the good thing about the 8009s is the longevity,
Right.
right? I
Mhm.
think we already did 4 track days,
Yep. And they look
right? And
very good shape
I mean,
still.
you can see it,
Yeah.
right? It's right here,
Yeah.
right? I
Tons of
mean,
life left
exactly.
still.
Once you get the right pressure, and it's not gonna. I mean, it's gonna be different for every car, every setup, every tire size, basically. They work really good, and lap after lap, they actually stay consistent, right? Like, I mean, you don't lose any feedback, you don't lose any grip or anything,
Mm.
so you can actually rely on the like feedback and the grip
And the
and the
consistency of it.
consistency you get from tires, and that eventually leads to a faster lap time,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
So yeah, we paid 1,300 for a set. uh I think that's okay. Like, that's an
Yeah,
average.
that's pretty much on par with
Yeah,
a performance tire like that. I would actually consider that a pretty decent deal.
yeah,
Considering some regular street tires are almost $1,000 a
yeah,
set. So I mean, bang for buck, you're pretty much at the top
exactly.
tier
And
here.
given the state they're in now after 4 track days,
Yeah, for
because
sure.
I don't think you get that with the AO52s. What's the
No,
other one? That it's
uh,
AO52, right?
yeah, the
Yeah.
52s, I believe. Yeah,
Uh, it's like they're fast for one lap or
yeah,
maybe one session. They're
right.
faster than 8009s, but then that's it.
Yeah, they'll wear out
Yeah.
almost completely. You'll see uneven wear on each
Yeah.
side. So the consistency was definitely something.
Yeah.
So yeah, the next up were the those beautiful white wheels that we have sitting back there. They're the Super Speed RF06RRs. They're an 18 by 9.5 wheel. They're almost, I can say, one of the most beautiful wheels to sit on the BRZ chassis. I think a lot of people couldn't agree. We've been to many track days, and pretty much every single person refers to the BRZ by the one with the white
Yeah.
wheels, and it's for a good reason. When we're talking bang for buck, um, the weight of the wheel, the quality of the wheel, the finish of it, the fitment, everything was absolutely perfect. Especially for the price. I think the full set came out to about $1,100, which is, I think, again, great bang for buck, especially considering how great they look.
Yeah.
Obviously, later in the video, we'll kind of explain what happened to the fourth wheel. More of a driver error, less of an actual product, but that always comes with track days and stuff like that too.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, we actually talked about this, the podcast we had yesterday with Jason from True Track Mind.
You should check that out too as
Yeah.
well.
Wheels, when you track your car, they become a consumable,
Yeah, true.
right?
Right. Yeah.
Wheels and tires, you
Yeah.
got to see them as like one thing,
Yeah.
and you're going to run through them eventually,
Yeah.
right? Something's going to happen,
I
right?
haven't been to. I haven't experienced a track car where they haven't bent a wheel yet.
Yeah.
Like no matter even the stock wheels, I'm like talking, those gigantic thick BMW OEM wheels are still bending and
Yeah.
cracking. But like you know what it's like at the track. You're putting so much force on the car. You kind of have to expect some things to break. is just part of the game.
Yeah. All right. So after the wheels, another unique thing that I think we had and still have are the seats,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
The pink seats.
Yeah.
Because people, when they're trying to like explain what car they're talking about, they're either the BRZ with the white wheels
Yeah,
or they're BRZ with the pink
pretty
seats,
much.
right?
Yeah.
And I love that actually.
Yeah.
The seats are from NRG. I think they're called Prismas.
Yeah, the Prisma.
And we pretty much paid the same price for the seats. For two seats, we paid $1,100.
Yeah.
And by the way, these numbers are like really clear. I rounded them up,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So that we don't deal with too many
Change.
numbers,
Yeah,
right? Like I
gotcha.
mean, it's yeah, maybe it was 1,098,
$50. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I
but like I
got you.
mean, it's 1,100,
Yeah,
right? But yeah, for two seats, when you think about the average price for a bucket seat,
yeah,
they actually like in terms of price point,
yeah.
it's like bang for buck,
Big time
right?
for
Yeah,
sure.
because an equivalent Sparkle or a Recaro,
Hmm.
I think you're gonna pay that price for one
For
seat
just one,
only.
yeah,
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 right.
that's true.
And they look good. They're comfortable. I spend a lot of time on Recaro pole positions.
Right.
They're not as comfortable,
Mm,
right? But they're comfortable enough,
gotcha.
right? Especially at this price point.
Yeah, and they just look
Definitely.
so unique. They
Oh yeah,
look so amazing.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it catches your eye straight
yeah.
away, and it's hard to look away after that. Like
Yeah. I
honestly.
will say this though, it's almost too difficult to keep them clean.
Oh man, yeah.
Like I don't know what I was thinking when I was picking everything out, like white
That's the
wheels.
last thing on your mind
Yeah.
always. It looks good, but you're not thinking about cleaning
Yeah.
it.
Now, I mean, if something works okay and looks good,
Yeah.
why not get it, right?
Yeah,
Same thing
exactly.
with the wheels.
Yep.
They're light, they're cheap, they're strong,
Yeah.
and they look good.
Yeah.
So we went for those.
Yep.
Same thing with the seats. They're light, they're cheap, they look good.
Yeah.
So we went with those.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I mean, I don't know how many times I had like a rag and a suede cleaner on my hand,
You just
basically
had to
just
do it.
yeah, clean the whole seat out.
Yeah.
But keeping them clean, keeping them fresh, right? Especially when you're working on your car,
Yeah.
like you get dirty, right? Your clothes
Always.
get dirty,
Yep.
and eventually you have to sit on your seat, right?
Hmm.
So it is gonna get dirty, but at the end of the day, I think it's rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another thing to keep in mind, another consumer advice, try to think about that stuff later on. So before you make your purchase, think about whether you're going to be using it all the
Yeah.
time, if it's going to be, exposed to the elements or dirt or anything, if it's your work car, it's something to keep in mind for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right.
So the next things up were the brake discs. They're the DBA 4000 discs.
Yeah.
They're slotted and drilled. Actually,
No,
no, they're
just
just
slotted.
slotted.
Yeah.
Yes, actually.
T3, I think DBI calls them T3,
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so for the full set of those, there came out to around $1,100 as well. Those are one of those things again fall under the safety side of things. One of those places where you really don't want to cheap out. Again, we're looking for longevity. Of course, we could have got a set of cheap pads and rotors, but you're using these brakes all the time.
Yeah.
You're hard on the brakes all the time. And it's one of those things you need to absolutely rely on. You can't question any of that stuff, especially when you're out on the track.
Yeah.
So going with a good set of rotors like these DBA 4000s were definitely worth
Definitely.
the cost.
And they're plug and play, right?
Right.
Like I mean, they're car specific.
Mhm.
The wheel pattern, the lug nut pattern,
Right.
right? It's for this car and for that brake setup we have. And one of the reasons why I bought this BRZ rather than any other one
Mhm.
is I wanted to have the big brake kit,
Right.
right?
Yep.
And it's like I don't know 4 or 5K of
Yeah,
savings right
for
there,
sure.
right?
Yep.
Because when you want to get a brake kit, big brake kit,
Yeah.
it is expensive,
Yeah.
right? And I knew that I would do that eventually
Yeah.
if I hadn't had this now,
Right.
right? So yeah, saving money.
Oh yeah, and then
Right?
the rotors they're not. I mean, they're a little bit aggressive, the rotors
Yeah,
themselves, but we haven't seen them chew at the pads or anything like
yeah,
that. No one even wear nothing of the sort. Like they pretty much stayed nice and true,
yeah.
nice and fresh, no glazing.
And most of the tracks that we go or we're planning to go
Right.
are hard on brakes,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
TMP is hard on brakes.
Definitely.
DDT is really hard on brakes.
Yeah.
CTMP, like, I mean, it's a bigger track, but still there are a lot of hard braking zones, right?
Yeah.
Like high speed zones to a really slow corner.
Mm-hmm.
Shannonville,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Maybe Calabogie in the future,
So
right?
I think we did touch on it a little while ago that there is a little bit too much bite
Yeah,
on the brakes. I think that's just something that we kind of got to get used to or kind of figure out what we're going to
yeah.
do about that.
Maybe play
So
around with the pads.
yeah, so maybe it might help with the modulation
Yeah,
when we get some different pads, but again, more experimental. At least we got the proper rotors from the start so
yeah,
that if we need to interchange pads, we still can. And we don't need to go swapping out rotors again. They're
yeah.
still very solid.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk more about it when we actually come to the brake pads. But there's another reason why I kind of went with aggressive rotors and not as aggressive brake
Brake
pads,
pad,
right?
yeah.
But before that, let's talk about the headers.
Yeah.
They're from Tomei and unequal length headers. We paid 1,050 for those. So I want to kind of talk about why we went the unequal length route, and it's purely for the boxer rumble, right?
Oh yeah.
Because technically, you actually get a better peak power when
Yeah.
you go equal length, right? And
Yeah.
these cars from factory, they come with an equal length header, right? But they lack that boxer rumble,
Yeah.
right? And I always wanted that, so it was basically a no-brainer for me.
Mm.
And also, Tomei is actually a really high quality
Yes,
brand,
definitely.
right?
Yeah.
The sound is really good. The install was easy.
Yeah.
They even sent us a heat shield for the oil pan, right? I lost it, but they sent it. They sent it, but yeah. And like I said, the quality is there. So 1,050, not too bad. Obviously, there are cheaper alternatives there.
Yeah.
But
I'd
yeah,
say that's probably the better route to go. I tend to stay away from some of the eBay stuff, which when you're considering price, it's almost a quarter of the price you'll get
yeah,
them for. But if you're actually going to be abusing the car and they're going to see a ton of heat cycles, generally speaking, I'm not speaking for every single brand out there, but those welds are not the greatest. They usually tend to have a lot of fluctuations, they tend to crack and all that sort of stuff, the thin material. So when you get something like Tomei, you know that you're getting a quality part, and that's probably going to stay on there for the lifetime of the car and would probably never have an issue
yeah.
with any of it.
Yeah, we also got them ceramic coated.
Yeah.
It's not on the list here.
Mm.
I wanted this to be the things that we kind of chose to do and we like bought specifically,
Right.
right? Tomei actually sends you a set of wrap, so
Oh,
you
okay.
can wrap it if you want,
Mm-hmm.
but I just didn't want to deal with it. And like, I know a guy who does ceramic coating and is really good at it, so
Right.
we got them and the overpipe ceramic coated for like $200,
Oh, nice.
right?
That's actually really good.
Yeah,
That's a good price.
it was a good price,
Yeah.
and considering the gains, not gains, but like
Yeah.
considering the heat advantages,
Yeah, for
right?
sure. Mm-hmm.
Especially when you like come to a full stop after a session at a track,
Yes, that's it.
uh, like everything under the hood,
Yeah.
it gets heat soaked, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of helps with that. All right, let's go. Next thing on the list.
So the next thing up was the Jackson Racing oil cooler. We actually do have a video. You'll check it up with
Yeah,
the link there.
yeah.
We actually had that installed, I think before our second track day.
I think before the first one.
Oh yeah, we
Yeah,
actually did
yeah,
it
yeah,
before the
yeah,
first
right
track day.
before the first one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so we got that installed. It cost about $1,000 in total for the kit. This isn't one of those safety aspects. It's not 100% necessary, but it is one of those things that we thought would, again, increase the longevity of the life of the car. It's one of those things that would, help reduce the strain on the engine, especially the cooling system. If you can kind of keep your oil temperatures down to a minimum, at least you can rely on the car to keep going around on the track all day long, which it's proven to
oh
do
yeah,
that all day long. Like no single
yeah,
issue, no fluctuations. It's been running great, and I think
yeah,
we owe a lot of that to that oil cooler.
definitely. Yeah, like without the oil cooler, the oil temperature used to go above 110, even during street driving,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
You're not getting that high with the RPMs and everything.
Hmm.
But at a track at OTA school, the last session we had, we basically went all out for like 20-25 minutes,
Yeah.
right? No cool down laps,
Nice.
which I don't recommend, but uh, we were kind of like caught up.
Yeah.
temp, it wasn't a cool day either, right?
Yeah.
The oil temps didn't actually go above 110.
Nice. That's
And
actually really good.
it's really good.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you know how hot the oil actually gets,
Yeah.
especially in an engine like F820, it's a high compression engine,
Exactly. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really important to keep the oil temps at an optimum temperature.
For
All right.
sure. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, brake pads. They're from Counter Space Garage. And I think they're the CP model. So it's the least aggressive model they actually sell. It's their like street slash track dual purpose compound. And the reason why I wanted to go with that is in a car like BRZ, you don't want to kill the speed,
Right.
right? Like you don't want to, I don't know, you don't want to press on the brakes a little too hard and then lose that momentum, right? There
Right.
is a reason why these cars are called momentum cars because you have to keep that going, right?
Yeah.
If you slow down too much, you're going to lose the whole lap,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
So I kind of wanted to start with a less aggressive pad setup. And then in the future, if I feel like we could use a little bit more aggressive pad,
Right.
we can always go with that because we had the discs for it,
Right.
right?
I can't
So
even imagine a more aggressive pad at this point
honestly,
because
yeah,
you just kind of put your foot on it.
yeah,
You'll get a little slow
yeah,
graduation, but any more and it's a full
yeah.
bite
It's a full bite,
and it really
exactly.
locks you in. So
Yeah,
timing your braking and stuff with this car especially is almost crucial to get your
yeah,
cleanest
exactly.
lap times. Like you said, keep that momentum going.
It's not the easiest to trail brake at the moment,
Exactly right. Yes.
but it kind of makes it a good setup to work on trail braking,
Yeah. True.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's what I tried to do in turn two at DDT
Hmm.
the last time we were there. And if you get it right,
That long sweeping.
yeah, the long
Huge
right
temperature.
hander
Right.
with the on camber,
Hmm.
it's rewarding, right?
Right.
But you can like just as easily lose too much speed,
Yeah. That
right?
makes sense.
But yeah, we paid $1,000 for those for four corners.
Right.
I think that's a little too much when you
Yeah.
think about the competition.
Hmm.
But I know CSG and like they're a big supporter of this
The
platform.
platform
Yeah,
itself. Yeah.
and I know that they actually stand behind their products.
Hmm.
And I was like, if I'm gonna spend $800 or on something else that I don't really know about,
Right.
I might as well spend a little bit more on the stuff that I know
They
about,
actually know
right?
about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about pads, like we took a look at the pads after the first
Oh yeah.
couple of track days. They seemed almost untouched.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
it's ridiculous how strong they actually held up, even
Yeah.
with aggressive rotors and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's tons of brake dust because you see it on the
Yeah.
wheel, but otherwise you see the actual thickness of the pads. They almost didn't wear. We're not
Yeah.
using the brakes like crazy
Yeah.
because there's just so much braking power in those pads already.
Yeah.
So it just worked out perfect.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I think the next thing we had was the catback exhaust.
Yeah.
So after, I mean, you actually had the catback exhaust installed before we
Before
had the
we,
headers
yeah,
in.
exactly. That was
Um,
pretty much the first thing that I put on the car.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that there only it cost about $900. It was the NVIDIA N2. Again, NVIDIA is one of those known brands. Again, I tried to recommend staying away from some of the cheaper aftermarket eBay stuff. When it comes in terms of sound, when you buy these higher quality pieces, that sound you get is a little bit cleaner, crisper, no raspiness. It definitely helps in purchasing something a little bit higher end. Um, Especially when you're in the car and driving on the track, you don't want to hear too much exhaust noise or raspiness. You actually want to pay attention to sounds of the tire, your engine noise, if anything's happening, because that's where you're getting most of the response of your vehicle. If you have a car that's just raspy loud, you're not really hearing the car as much as you should be. So getting something like this, a nice clean catback that was built for your car or even custom built or something like that should put you in around the same area. But definitely a great mod to have and something that I think is worth considering spending the little extra on.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, if you're gonna daily a car like the one we have now, it's on the louder side,
Yeah, for sure.
right? Like, I mean, it wouldn't be comfortable, especially on a highway, because with the BRZ, you get basically no sound insulation, right? And if you take your rear seats out, like we did,
Yeah.
it gets even worse. But like Brian mentioned, on a track, you're like you're kind of on a high that your senses are basically like heightened, right?
Exactly.
And it doesn't take away too much from that,
Yeah.
right? And it also sounds really good.
It sounds
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah. If you want to have something that's a little bit more on the quieter side, I think they have something else that's called like Q300 or
Okay.
N300. I don't know, but it's a little more towards the quieter sound. Still not as quiet as the stock one, obviously, but yeah, that should be a little bit more livable. Yeah. All right. So front pipe, it's the piece of exhaust that actually connects the overpipe to the catback, and that's also so that's from JDL, right? I was gonna say Imedia, but that's from JDL. JDL has three different options when it comes to a front pipe for BRZ. You either have a straight pipe option, you have the dual resonated one, or they also have something they call the ultra quiet version,
Okay.
right? The one we have is the one in the middle. It's the dual resonated one, right? And with JDL, it took, I think, like 4 weeks to build,
Oh, okay.
and then 6 weeks, like 2 more weeks after that to get here,
Right.
right? But the moment you take a look at that piece,
Yeah. You understand why.
yeah, it's like it's an art piece.
Yeah.
Honestly, like it's almost too good to put on a car and not see it at
And
all.
not see it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
I get it.
so we paid $900 for that, and when you think about the material, the amount of material there is in the front pipe,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You're paying the same amount for a catback,
Yeah.
right? Which has a lot more piping, a lot more material in it,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that says something about the quality that JDL provides, right? I didn't want to cheap out on that because front pipe actually goes down here, right? It's the piece that's closest to the driver or the
Right.
passenger, right?
Exactly.
And I know that it's the piece that either makes your exhaust noise raspy
Right.
or not,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
So that's why I didn't want to go with the straight pipe version. I also wanted some like noise,
Some dampening
yeah,
of some kind.
exactly, and dual resonator. So $900, not cheap, but I would say it's worth it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next thing we had was the harnesses.
Yeah.
They were the green Takata harnesses. You guys have probably seen us wear those quite a few times. For the set of two, those are the 4-point harnesses. It was $800. It's again one of those things, falls right under that safety aspect of the car. One of those things you definitely don't want to cheap out on. A lot of the times you see used belts and all that sort of stuff online. That's kind of where I draw the line a little bit. Um, when it comes to that material, they do expire. When you physically feel them, they feel always, super strong, but it's always a good idea to get a good set of quality belts that are up to date. So for the price, the Takata set was actually a really good deal, especially that it fits the general 4-point of the car very well. I think they look great, by the way.
They do, yeah,
I mean, they just
definitely.
look so good with the contrast against
Yeah.
the pink as well. So I think those were amazing. I do kind of still prefer the 5-point harness over a 4-point.
Or a 6-point harness.
Or
Yeah.
a 6-point. I think it's just one of those things that comes down to personal preference and also the actual use of the vehicle. Because it's more of a daily car, I think the 4-point made a lot of sense.
Yeah. And technically, the ones we have are street legal,
Right,
right?
exactly.
Because they have a conventional buckle, right?
Exactly.
They're not like those twist.
Yeah, it doesn't have the
yeah, it
center
doesn't have
lock.
that, right?
Right.
So technically, they're street legal. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to go with those because we still drive the car to and from the track,
Exactly.
right? But and I think we agree on this. We would rather have a 2-inch shoulder belt, like rather than a 3-inch,
Yeah,
which is what we have now.
Yeah, the 3-inch belt tends to kind of ride a little bit wider on your shoulders. It doesn't really matter so much when you're just driving the car without your gear on, but the moment you put on your Hans device and your helmet, it kind of rides a little bit off of the Hans device and it kind of settles a little bit. oddly. So I always recommend 2-inch belts. They all always sit quite
Yeah.
nicely all over you. They strap you in, feel a little bit
Yeah.
cleaner, a little bit easier to maneuver, especially when you're strapping yourself in.
Exactly. Yeah.
So something that
And
something
we
to
are
think
actually
about.
gonna do something about that like really soon. You'll see that on the channel if you're subscribed. If you're not subscribed now, so you know when we're gonna do it
Yeah.
and what we're actually doing about it.
Mhm.
We're going a little bit more towards professional racing equipment when it comes to seats
Yeah.
and harnesses,
Right.
right? But yeah, right. So the next thing, you guys haven't seen this yet, but like I'll put a glamour shot, like a B-roll of it
Yeah.
behind this. It's the ducktail spoiler we have from Varus Engineering. It's a carbon fiber one.
Mhm.
Really subtle look, in my opinion. It's not too much. Let us know what you guys think. Like, do you think it's too much? Would you do something like that, or would you go even bigger
Yeah.
wing? Right? And it came about $700, right? So in terms of its functionality, I know that Varus actually puts a lot of science behind their products,
Right.
right? They even send you the data behind it and everything.
Mhm.
In our case, it's 100% for looks
Yeah.
only, right? I'm not expecting any downforce from it. If it provides it, then yeah. But like I was, I mean, I don't think I was ever like, oh, this car needs more downforce at any
Yeah. True.
point, right?
Yeah. No, not at all.
So yeah, it's purely for looks, and I actually like how it looks.
I love how it looks. It looks
Yeah,
so clean, and most of the time you see a BRZ, it's one of two options. It's that big spoiler
yeah,
that people love to put, what I just don't think is necessary at all. Or you have the nice clean TS style, which
yeah,
you did have before. But the ducktail just it seems to fit the body of the
yeah,
car. It makes the car look a little bit wider for some
yeah. For some
reason.
reason, yeah, it made the hips of the car a little wider,
Yeah, it makes
right?
it look a little bit, I don't know, buffer or
Yeah,
something. But yeah, I think it looks great.
yeah. So 700 for that. Like I said, there are cheaper alternatives there, but when it
Yeah,
comes to carbon fiber, if you cheap out,
yeah,
you end up spending that time on trying to fit it
exactly.
properly,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But yeah, all right.
So the next one up were the camber plates. So this actually goes back to the KW coilovers.
Mhm.
So even though the coilovers themselves cost about 3,500, it's about another $500 for the camber plates that sit on top of the
Yeah,
front strut
these are
mounts.
also from Maris Engineering.
They're also from Varus, yep. And they are a little bit expensive, more on the expensive side, but again, we're always about longevity. We want those parts to match up with those KWs to make sure everything was aligned correctly.
Hmm.
We had the adjustability that we always want in case we ever did want to make any changes. Um,
If we ever go drifting, maybe.
yeah, if we ever end up wanting to go sideways with it, we're definitely going to need to do something with that. The options are there. It kind of gives you a lot more customizability um, when it comes to that. I think Yalom did a great job at that. He did most of the decision making on what parts and stuff he wanted to order, and all of these parts kind of came to the same consensus about customizability and making sure we can make adjustments on the fly.
Like buying things once, right?
Exactly. Yeah, buy it right, buy it the first time, and I think those camber plates again were one of those things that opens up possibilities for later on, regardless of what we do with the car.
Yeah. And actually now there used to be a lot more companies that do camber plates for the BRZ platform, BRZ
Mm,
86 platform.
right.
There isn't that many companies anymore,
I got you.
right?
Hmm.
Like I think Varus does it. I know that Racing discontinued theirs, which was actually a really good piece. It had caster adjustment too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, a
Hmm.
couple other companies that do it, but Rares was the one that they had in stock, readily available.
Right.
And like I said, for the Ducktail spoiler thing, I know that they actually put the time and effort behind their products, right?
Right.
Designing their
Hmm.
products. So yeah,
Nice.
all right. So another suspension part, rear lower control arms. These are from SPC. Like the shape they have, it's really similar to stock. It's just a little bit longer than stock,
Hmm.
and you have a little bit more adjustability. So like the price point, 380 for left and right total. And like I said, really similar to stock. You don't really need something fancy back there, as long as it doesn't move under 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 a lot of force or anything. They're gonna do the job, right? So they're cost effective. You never see them, right? So they don't need to actually look that good, right? Yeah, and they do the job, right? We have pretty much, like, we can do pretty much everything we want to do at the rear in terms of alignment, right? Yeah. All
I
right.
see. Another one of the exhaust portions, so was the overpipe, the
Yeah.
pipe that actually comes from the manifold over the cross member. It's also by Tomei, so you already know it's another quality
Yeah.
piece. When it comes to build quality, you don't really have to question it. Again, a great decision in my opinion when it comes to stuff like that. Ended up costing around $350, which is it doesn't seem like you're getting a huge amount of value, but like we said, when it comes to material, sound, and all that sort of stuff, it's worth taking the consideration of spending the little extra just so you achieve that sound that imagine driving a car where you're just annoyed with the sound all the time.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine that. So
Yeah.
to spend a little extra on quality pieces, at least you could drive the car around and not be annoyed,
Exactly.
which I think is probably one of the biggest values you can do for
Yeah.
yourself.
And also, when we took the stock overpipe out, there was actually a dent in it, right? So they intentionally did that so that they could fit
Right.
that part in an area that small,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And Tomei apparently found a way to shape it a little differently,
Right.
and there are no bends in the Tomei one,
Yeah.
right? So that means better flow for the exhaust gases, right?
Right.
And when you're that close to the engine, you want those gases to flow as freely as possible, right?
Right.
Obviously with some back pressure, but
Yeah.
not too much, right? Or not too low,
Right.
right? Okay, so rear toe arms, another suspension part, also from SPC, just like the lower control arms, pretty much the same look as the stock ones, right? They just have a little bit more adjustability,
Yeah.
right? Because when you lower a car and when you play around with the camber settings, sometimes the toe actually gets out of alignment, right?
Yeah.
And you want to correct it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is what we have now. We have zero toe all around.
Right.
And if we didn't have the toe arms,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have been able to do that.
Yeah, it would have been locked in at whatever
Yeah,
position the
yeah,
geometry allows it for.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
just to have that adjustability
yeah,
definitely opens up again more
yep,
possibilities. The next one up, it's not we're kind of coming down to the
yeah,
kind of cheaper stuff, but when you're thinking about small things like lug nuts, um, we paid about it was $140 for the
yeah.
aluminum.
No, for the steel one, the
Those were
ones
the
we have
steel
now,
ones,
yeah.
right? So originally we actually had a Mishimoto set of aluminum lug nuts. Of course, there are tons lighter, but we have heard of some horror stories of them kind of backing off and expanding slightly because of the difference in material. Obviously, we haven't been able to prove this. I haven't been able to prove it myself. I've only heard stories. It's very well that they could work just as well as the steel ones.
They kind of did too. Remember, after the first track day, we
Yeah,
tried to retorque them, the aluminum ones.
right.
They didn't actually,
They
like,
didn't move all
yeah, they
too
didn't
much. Yeah,
move.
they
Yeah,
didn't back off or
yeah,
anything like that. So it's kind of one of those things I think we'll still have to
yeah,
experiment with. I don't want to give you guys a definite answer or
yeah,
anything. We're still learning. I've been a technician forever, but there's still so many things we still have to kind of figure it out. Um, the general idea is that steel lug nuts will lock a little bit better
yeah,
onto your hubs just because they will expand at the same rate that the stud is. Whereas aluminum generally expands at a quicker rate than steel.
yeah.
But that again is theory. We haven't been able to test it. But one of those things we didn't want to take a chance at. You don't want your
Yeah,
wheel flying out when you're doing 200 kilometers. It's not really worth it.
yeah. And I know myself. Like, I mean, if I had kept it there, I know that I would be still thinking about them.
Yeah,
Like, are they loosening off? Are they coming out?
yeah,
Like, I mean, yeah. I was like,
yeah.
better now than late.
Pretty much.
But yeah, so that was a lug nuts. And the last item on the list is the intake hose. I almost didn't actually include this because it's such a small part
Yeah, sure.
that no one has ever seen.
Yeah,
It's the intake hose that it goes from the air filter to the throttle body.
Yeah.
It's from Perrin, and pretty much the only reason why I went with this is that it deletes the sound tube that these cars have from factory,
Yeah.
right? It's a tube that goes from that intake hose to the passenger side footwell, and it kind of pumps in intake nose into the cabin,
Right.
right? Which
Yeah.
I don't love,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, you could just go and cut that off
Yeah.
and you'll be done with it,
Right.
but I didn't like how that would look,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's just $135, so it's like we just slapped it on there and it's there. It's something
I
like you
think that's like
do.
a Subaru guy like
Yeah,
basic first mod you
yeah,
have to do, like get the parent intake.
exactly.
That's pretty much
Yeah,
standard
that's
for
what you
Subaru.
do, right? And it's not expensive too, right? So
Yeah.
why not do it? And they have really cool colors too. Honestly, I forgot what color mine
I
is.
think yours was black, right?
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah, I think
black.
you
I
have a
wanted the
black one.
blue one, but I think it was
Yeah,
out of stock. Yeah.
sure.
But yeah, that's it. That's the list. And before I tell you the total number, like when I first started this journey, when I first thought about buying the BRZ, I set a budget of 40K Canadian, right? And I can tell you that we're we're above that budget now, a little bit, but not too bad, I
and that's
think.
with and that's with being smart about everything, being smart about our purchases and everything like
Yeah,
that.
like, I mean, this build could have been a lot cheaper or a
It could
lot
have
more
gone, yeah,
expensive,
of course, yeah,
right? Like, I mean, you could easily double these prices,
for
right?
sure.
But yeah, so the total is 45,765 Canadian, right? So let's call it 46,000. And at the time of filming, according to Google, it's 34K US,
Okay,
right?
nice.
So when you put it that way, it doesn't sound that bad.
Yeah, put it into
uh,
US dollars.
but yeah, like, I mean, we're basically like 5,000-6,000 over budget,
Right,
right? But I think it's gonna pay off over time because we didn't really cheap out on the important stuff,
right,
right?
exactly. Yeah,
Uh, at least I hope so.
yeah.
But I'm kind of curious to see what would you actually buy or build
Mhm.
for that much money.
Oh, yeah. Whew. For 50K. So it's hard to say because it always end up going to personal preference.
Yeah,
Um, for me, I mean, a lot of people know I'm a big BMW fan, so I'd probably end up going towards a slightly larger engine platform. I kind of I'm a fan of torque, I guess. So I kind of tend towards going to the larger displacement side, or if we're talking, a little bit more to the turbo forced induction side
yeah,
of things. So for around 40 to 50K, I think it's very hard to beat bang for buck what you got with the BRZ, because pretty much any other platform you spend 50K on, it's going to be very hard to, I mean, sorry, 40K on, very hard to get that performance out of a
yeah,
vehicle, especially something that responds so well and that sort of stuff. Um, but for myself, I think I would still end up going towards a BMW.
yeah. E46, 36.
I think the E46 chassis has kind of spoken to me for
Yeah,
many years, just because I kind of know the chassis kind of inside out, and I just kind of have a little bit more experience driving it. I actually haven't thought too much about where 40K would take me with that chassis,
yeah,
um, but it's something we'll definitely have to take a look at.
yeah,
We do have another series kind of in the works. It's not anything crazy just yet, but it is a little bit more on the budget side. It will be of my E46 chassis. We'll do another breakdown, of course,
yeah,
once
yeah,
we
for
once we
sure.
get to that point. But for 50K, it's really hard to
It
say.
is
It's a
hard,
it's a
right? Yeah,
tough decision.
because it's like it's such a specific amount of money that you either kind of have to buy something and keep it stock
Right.
if it's going to be better than the BRZ we have now.
Yeah.
Not talking about the power it's going to have, like you could
Exactly.
easily have tons of power for a lot cheaper.
Right.
But in terms of having something that's unique to your own like preferences,
Yes.
right? You either have to buy something and keep it stock,
Yeah.
or you would have to buy a shell that's a lot cheaper
Right.
and
Build
build a
upon it.
car from ground up,
Yeah.
right? So
I
like,
think bang for buck wise, it'll be very hard to achieve something like what we did for that price. If you buy a stock car with tons of power, you're always thinking about the little extra, especially if it's a new car or
yeah,
something like that. There's always something you're always worried about. So getting a slightly cheaper chassis to work on is always, something to consider.
Exactly.
One of the newer cars, you might not get that same performance out of it, especially because you're always worrying about it. When you have a car like that, you can fully send it. At least you're on the edge all the time. And I
And you
think
can
that's
learn how
valuable.
to drive better too, right?
Exactly. I think there's more value in that than
Yeah.
having more power or anything like that. But having a car that you can actually learn how to
Yeah.
maneuver is definitely worth the extra.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so too. But like, I mean, ever since I asked you that question, I've been thinking about it.
Yeah. Would you do it
Uh,
again?
I think I would.
Yeah.
I think I would. Yeah. But the only thing that I would do, like the only other
Differently?
thing that I would do,
Mhm.
or the only other car that I would buy,
Mhm.
and again, I don't think I would be able to build it to the same level with that
Right.
much money,
Yeah.
is a 944,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I gotcha.
I like the chassis,
Yeah.
but whatever you buy for that car,
Yeah.
you pay Porsche premium,
Exactly, for
right?
sure.
And it's
100%.
like finding parts for that car. It's not as easy as finding parts for the BRZ or an
Exactly.
86, right?
Yep.
Or an E46, right?
Exactly. So that's another thing to consider is the availability of parts for your platform that you're actually going into. The reason I love the 46 platform is because there's a million of them on the road. Half of them are about to die anyways.
Yeah,
So tons of parts available. Same with the BRZ. The platform's getting a little bit older. Support for them in the aftermarket
yeah,
is almost unlimited. So you definitely have to keep that in mind if you are going to build on a platform. Unless you have tons of money and you can
yeah,
just buy a brand new platform and develop on that,
exactly.
which eventually we will get into.
Yeah,
Uh,
but
but for the time being, where we're at,
but
I
even
think,
until we get there, we still need, at least for myself, I still need to become a better
oh
driver,
yeah, 100%,
right?
tons of room
So
for that.
yeah, because then you can actually get your money's worth of any car you buy,
Exactly.
right?
Yep.
And it takes time to get there. It takes seed time to get there,
Yep.
right? Okay, so that's it. Let us know what you guys would buy for that money, or what you guys would basically build for that money.
Yeah.
Would you do the same thing? Would you go a different route? Yeah, let us know in the comments if there's anything that you want to learn that we didn't mention in today's video. Let us know. And yeah,
And if you guys like this style of video too, let us know.
yeah,
We have tons of content. We're always creating,
yeah,
always thinking, but most of the time we're basing it off of what you guys are asking us. So if you guys have any questions, like he
yeah,
said, let us know. We
yeah.
have tons of tons
Yeah,
of
we are
opportunities.
actually planning on doing videos more like this,
Yeah.
but not just us, but with other people that actually are experts on something really specific,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So, like, we have people that we want to do a podcast with, and those people are basically experts on suspension setup, right? We have other people that we plan on doing podcasts, and I say podcast, but like it's going to be like this, right?
Yeah.
It's just us sitting down having a chat, and yeah, we have something planned for suspension settings. We have something else planned for wheels and tires, right? Setups, what tires work best at a track, what
Mhm.
tires you need if you're dailying your car and tracking your car,
Right.
right? So that kind of stuff. If you have any kind of topics that you're thinking about right now that you want us to basically talk about,
Yeah.
right, and get people to talk about, let us know in the comments, right? If
Mhm.
you're not subscribed, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, give it a like. Oh, and before we end the video, we still didn't talk about the
Oh yeah.
wheel situation we
Sure.
have going on, right? So we actually bent a wheel at DDT at OTA school,
Yeah.
right? It's the front left, and it probably happened because we hit a curb a little too hard,
Yeah.
right? Which it happens, right?
The
Like we,
curbs there at DAT
yeah,
are quite high. They're like
yeah.
buildings tall. So
Yeah, and they are the
one
fastest
mistake.
way to go around that track,
Yeah.
right? And as you get faster, you're looking for ways to use more of the track,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Which ends you up in a curb,
Yeah.
right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. So and like we have a little too much stretch on the side walls of the tires, at
Mm.
least for my liking,
Right.
right? And the reason for that is if we ever want to go 255s,
Right.
right now we have 245s.
Mhm.
If we ever want to go 255s, we don't need to buy a new wheel,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And it that would, I think, protect it a little bit better
Yeah.
from curbs like that.
Right.
But yeah, right,
Mhm.
we're getting a new wheel from Super Speed. I wish it was for free, but it's not.
Not
I
yet.
wish, yeah, I wish they were sponsoring us, but they're not yet.
Yeah.
But honestly, I have to say, if it was a cheaper or lesser quality wheel,
Yeah.
it would have cracked.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And
You'll see, like, he'll probably put a
yeah, I
glamour
will.
shot of it,
Yeah,
but yeah, normally you see a kind of hit like that on any of the cheaper aluminum or
yeah,
alloy wheels. You'll see a crack straight down the
exactly.
end of the rim. You'll lose air. The thing still
You
held air,
crash.
and they
Yeah,
were driving it.
we were driving this, like, I mean, bent and dented wheel for one more session,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And then after that, drive home,
yeah. True.
right?
Yeah,
And it held up air.
yeah.
Even now, the pressure is
It's
exactly the
still the same.
same,
Yeah,
right? So yeah,
very
again,
impressive for sure.
yeah, like it is always possible to do things in a cheaper way,
Yeah,
right? But in a longer run, it always catches up on you,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
So I
yeah,
think general consensus of the whole video: spend a little extra, take the time, make sure you're considering yourself, think a little bit down the road, and you'll save yourself quite a bit of hassle. Obviously, we're going to do a little bit of the learning curve for you, but hopefully it informs you
yeah,
guys about where we made our mistakes. You guys won't make the same mistakes,
exactly,
and I think
exactly.
that's how we're all going to help each other
Yeah,
eventually.
definitely. Yeah, it's been a long one. If you're still here, we really appreciate you watching us. Like we're doing this because it actually makes us happy,
Yeah,
right? Like we're chasing a dream that we both had lifetime,
yeah,
right?
pretty much.
Yeah, if you like it, if like I said, if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. It helps us a lot. If you like the video, give it a like, and if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. And just as a reminder, if you have any topics that you want us to discuss or have someone come over and give you a better idea about it, let us know, and we'll do our best to basically put that content out as soon as possible.
Sounds
All
good.
right? Anything you want to say?
No, I think we're all good, man.
Yeah? All
Yes,
right.
sir.
Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.
See ya.
Bye.